Salutations friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing The World According to Arthur. This is the newest fragrance in PENHALIGON'S Portraits collection, and one that I have been not so patiently anticipating its arrival, and definitely not so patiently anticipating its arrival to my front door. So if you'd like to know my thoughts on this fragrance, then keep watching. For transparency, I purchased this. This was not sent to me to review. And I know some people love the Portraits collection. Some people have a so-so thought on the Portraits collection. Some people think the Portraits collection is overhyped. If you guys want to know my general consensus on the Portraits collection, I generally have enjoyed most of them in a very large capacity. So I am a fan of the Portraits collection. So I don't know if that will affect your thoughts and opinions on my review. I purchased every Portraits collection fragrance, but I am a fan of the line. And this fragrance I was so excited for. So I purchased this from Selfridges, and I have an issue with DHL. Sometimes they deliver it to my door, sometimes they deliver it 5 blocks over. So I was quite literally had my little camera on my front door, because I have one of those ring doorbells where it has a camera, and I had it open all day just waiting for the delivery guy. And as soon as I saw him drive up, I opened the door and I was like, where is my bottle of perfume? Because I was so excited for this fragrance. So this fragrance is an ambery, smoky, incensey. It's described as a slight spicy fragrance, like an ambery, woody, spicy fragrance. I wouldn't describe this as a spicy fragrance, but it does have some nice spiced and smoky nuances from the incense in this scent. Now, I'm going to read you the notes. I'm going to talk to you guys about how it smells. I'm going to tell you if it's worth it. But I will say, so far, this is actually might have completely knocked Mr. Harrod's off as my favorite Portraits. And I'm going to get into why, because if you guys don't know, the remarkable Mr. Harrod was my favorite Portraits collection for years, and had been my favorite for a very long time. One of my favorite fragrances for a very long time. So the fact that this has probably in the past few days knocked it off of that is saying something, but we'll get into why. So the notes in this, the top note, you have grapefruit, there's some vanilla, at the heart you have Ambrette, Clarey sage, and at the base you have Tonka incense, there's frankincense in here as well. I want to say that this fragrance is not going to be for everybody. There is something about this scent that really focuses on elements of what I would consider to be almost the flavor nuances of things, and not the overwhelming textural aspects of things. So what I mean by that is if we look at a flavor of something like an orange, you smell what an orange tastes like, or you smell the citrusy, bright, acidic, energizing aspects of the citrus. So when you have a fragrance that has orange in it, you either smell like an orange juice, or you smell something bright, citrusy, sparkling, almost sometimes aldehydic. And that's kind of like what I mean. So fragrances that are powdery can kind of smell and mimic powders, or they can smell powdery, almost like a texture. Same thing with things that are sweet. So when you have fragrances that smell sweet like sugar, like frosting, or you have fragrances that might have a note of, say, like brown sugar in it, and you smell what the flavor of brown sugar is, but you're not smelling any sweetness. So when I talk about nuances and flavors and textures and fragrances, that's kind of like what I'm talking about. What I love about this fragrance is it's utilizing all the nuance, almost flavor smell aspects of things, and little to no textures other than a cool smoke, like a gray smoke. And that's something that I find to be fantastic. I'm not going to talk about the story behind this fragrance, or the inspiration of the dragon and how it fits in with the other portraits, because to be perfectly honest, I am so far behind on the fun little whimsical story behind this line from PENHALIGON'S, and I don't think most people care. I think what you guys want to know is what the fragrance smells like. First, this is a beautifully complex but also very linear incense fragrance that doesn't focus on the stereotypical kind of warm, super resinous in the way that you would expect, almost the trade roots incense notes that you get from other Penhaligon's fragrances. This almost feels like an incense stick that was burned and was left out in the rain. And so you have that kind of cold, damp, burnt smell, a little bit of smudginess, a little bit of smokiness, but the smoke is long gone, but the smell of the smoke is still there. This isn't a dry fragrance, but this isn't a moist fragrance either. What I find to be really special about this fragrance is how it really celebrates incense and resins and spices in a way where it's not spicy, where it's not smoky, where it's not woody. And I find that the true, real winner combination in this has to do with the Ambrette and the Tonka. Now, when I look at fragrances that have the more texturous, powdery elements to them, normally it's easily like Iris Oris. And those, when you smell them, sometimes they can elicit almost like you've been punched in the face with talcum powder, baby powder. There's almost a stale bitterness to those scents. And I love that. I love it when fragrances smell like that. But not everybody likes that. But the idea that there's this soft, powdery, kind of marshmallowy, billowy smell, that powdery softness kind of really translates beautifully to something ethereal, something otherworldly, something cloudy, but still dense, like maybe a smoke, or a smoke that's long gone, but still lingers in the air, or is lingering around you in regards to corners of a room, or kind of clinging to cloth. And that's the smell that I'm getting from this, with this soft kind of powdery, almost slightly animalic, but not animalic in like a sharp, musky way. But if you've smelled like a very strong, very kind of dominant Ambrette fragrance, it has an otherworldly feel to it. And if you've had the pleasure of smelling Chanel No. 18, that's the best example I can give. Imagine that fragrance, but less cool steel and more soft and sensuous and smoky and resinous. And that's what this fragrance has in spades. I like that the incense is front and center, but it's not, again, the stereotypical, beautiful, strong, very easy to understand and easy to recognize incense fragrances that you might smell in some of the other fragrances from Penhaligon's. And I'm going to go to like Agarbethy from, the line. It's a great example. There's something about that fragrance that definitely seems very spiritualistic, very centering, very grounding, very specific, like you've smelled it before and it's reminding you of something very substantial. This just smells billowy and majestic, but easy. But there's nothing easy about this fragrance. And I love how it's really working with the Ambrette and the Tonka, which is giving these nuances of powders without the stale texture that powdery notes can have. And that really adds to this experience of something resinous and smoky and really beautiful without some of the more stereotypical aspects that resinous and smoky and powdery fragrances can have. And although those are beautiful, I think that this is completely different, makes this a standout scent in the line, or from Penhaligon. Now this definitely smells like vanilla, but I think that the vanilla in here is a mix between a salty vanilla without saltiness and a vanilla pod. There's no sweetness in this fragrance whatsoever, and I really appreciate that. And I like how the grapefruit is working to add a little bit of brightness, a tiny bit of acidity to a lot of these resins and smokes, and the sage is really beautiful. It adds a beautiful clarity to this fragrance that kind of is like if you look through a fog and you can see like the tree line across the other side. That's what the grapefruit does. There's no sparkle or bitterness or, again, astringent acidity from the grapefruit. Again, it's just a tiny little bit of clarity, like a little candle through a dim, foggy world, so to speak. And what that does for the vanilla is that little tiny bit of clarity, that little bit of acidity kind of mimics something that would be almost salty. And sometimes very salty, very dense, very resinous vanillas can mimic fragrances that smell salty on the skin, can kind of mimic fragrances that smell Play-Doh-y, at least in the opening. And those are very beautiful and they smell very good, but that can cheapen a very well-balanced composition that's not focusing on vanilla. Vanilla is not supposed to be the star of the show in this fragrance. The star of the show is supposed to be first how this fragrance performs, which is something billowy and smoking, but still very substantial and here I am, but also something that focuses on this really beautiful kind of smudgy, aromatic, gorgeous, kind of cool, spent incense. And the vanilla just adds this beautiful, soft, almost animalic roundness in the background. And what I like about vanilla pods, kind of like tonka bean and things like that, is it doesn't smell animalic in a musky way. It doesn't smell animalic in a way that a true animalic note would smell. It's a nuance in the background in a way that blood orange tastes different than a mandarin, tastes different than a clementine, tastes different than an orange. Those little nuances in flavor is the little nuances in different notes in how the tonka and the vanilla work together with the ambrette. Tiny little differences in the background that add some playful depth and complexity to something that's really focusing on something that's very smoky, very light, very cool, but also in some aspect very sexy. And that's what I love about this fragrance. I love fragrances that smell, and you smell it and you kind of understand what they're supposed to be. And when I saw that this was going to be an incense dominant fragrance, and I saw the ambrette and the tonka, I was excited. And when I saw the sage, I was hoping that it was going to pull this way. And when I saw Persolaise's review of this scent, I was like, I'm definitely getting it. I was going to get it, but I was most definitely getting it. I think I ordered it a day or two after I saw his review. He's one of the best fragrance channels ever. If you're interested in checking him out, if you haven't had the pleasure of listening to him discuss fragrance, again, one of the best. I will link his review of this and also just his channel in general. Definitely check it out. But he's just so eloquently described this fragrance, and I just remember sitting there and watching it and knowing what the notes were and thinking to myself, is he talking about the ambrette? Is he talking about the tonka? Is he mentioning the grapefruit? Like, I was so interested in it, and the first time I smelled this, I was like, yes, that's exactly what I expected. I just think this is gorgeous and different and special, but still something very wearable. So this has become one that I've just been super excited to wear. It's everything I'd hoped for. And I think it's also a very successful fragrance of the line, because I also think that it translates in a way that is creative and unique and quirky, but also just smells really beautiful on the skin. There's something about ambrette and sage and incense and all these notes that when you smell it, like from the cap or on a strip, it smells good, but you have to smell it on the skin. When it warms up on your skin with your body chemistry, it just develops into magic. So I absolutely love it. I would say this is a warm, ambery, resinous, smoky, spicy fragrance without being warm, without being too resinous, without being truly smoky, or without being spicy. You get a warmth from the vanilla, but it doesn't smell like anything warm in regards to like a cinnamon warmth or specific woods that would smell warm. I would say this is a resinous fragrance because it does have that beautiful resins from a variety of different notes in here, but it doesn't feel stagnant or too syrupy or too overwhelming like some resinous fragrances can have when paired with vanilla. The vanilla in here seems to be utilizing more of the pod-like scents, not so much the frosting or the sweet, syrupy, gourmand-like elements from the notes. So again, vanilla can smell a variety of different ways, and this seems to be like a very true, like vanilla pod, something slightly animalic, slightly something musky, but you get the beautiful nuances of the vanilla bean in there, which work really beautifully with the Clarey sage. And the Clarey sage, I think, works to add a beautiful aspect of something very grounding that works with this kind of idea of something smoky and smudged and incensey without it being, again, something a stereotypical resinous, warm, incensey fragrance that you would smell. And again, those fragrances are absolutely gorgeous, but it's nice to smell something different. Now, this fragrance has amazing longevity. The first time I wore this fragrance, I sprayed it the night I got it, and then I took a shower, a few hours later. And when I take a shower, I obviously exfoliate, and I have all my whole bathroom routine. And then I put on lotion, and at night, usually it's slightly flavored, not flavored, that sounds weird, scented lotion, there we go. And I have a nighttime, bedtime scent that I wear. So in the morning, the next day, after my bath and all that kind of stuff, I still smelled this on my skin when everything else was gone. Granted, it was like very close to the skin, but it was still there. So I would say that this has excellent performance, a very moderate, billowy sillage. But again, I've been wearing this kind of in slightly cooler weather. So again, I won't be able to tell you exactly how this performs in different environments in regards to cool weather, hot weather, and inside outside. But overall, I've been very impressed with this fragrance, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And to me, it kind of comes together and is very successful in a way where it's creating something very creative, very unique, very beautiful, something slightly avant-garde in regards to something that's really focusing on a note that not a lot of people really focus on, which is Ambrette and a smoky incense that isn't your stereotypical smoky incense. Again, you have frankincense, you have incense, you have some beautiful Clarey sage, you have all this stuff that could easily overpower and create a beautiful kind of resinous, very strong, spicy, smoky fragrance, but this feels very delicate and very deliberate. And I love how, again, it smells like some incense and some sage that's already been burnt, and it's sitting off to the side in a cool room, and you kind of smell what's been left over. And I think that that's something really special, really witty, and just really well done. And I like how this is also very wearable. And as much as I love the remarkable Mr. Herod, and this hasn't completely knocked it out yet because I will have to wear this more, just the fact that this is focusing on some notes and some compositions that I absolutely love that I don't see very often, I think that this is something very special. Now, even though I was saying that this is great, I love it, it's amazing, definitely, this isn't going to be for everybody, even though this has some powdery, smoky elements to it, and I don't think that it's super powdery in your face. If you do not like powdery fragrances, sample this first. If you are not super fan of vanilla dominant fragrances, sample this first. And most definitely with any expensive bottle of perfume, sample it first, don't blind buy it, just because a potato like me really enjoys it. But I think out of all of the portraits that I've tried, this is one of the more special ones because it's something that doesn't just smell like a good perfume. It smells like and I'm not even talking about how it fits in with the portraits collection or the story behind Arthur or the dragon or anything like that. I'm talking about taking something and telling a story with a fragrance, with notes, and doing something different. I like this a lot. I think it's creative and special. You've probably smelled it before, but I haven't smelled anything like this that really focused on an incense dominant fragrance that smelled soft and smoky and sensual and sexy, that utilized things that I don't see utilized in a way that were front and center. And I love how it really focused on this really gorgeous Ambrette and Tonka, and again, the vanilla pod in and of itself. The sage is a wise choice, and again, the grapefruit I think is being utilized more as the flavor of the grapefruit and less what grapefruit is usually utilized for its sparkly brightness, and it's kind of adding a clarity to the smoke, which makes everything stand out more bright and beautiful without it being, again, a bright fragrance. If you're looking for something smoky and sensual that's not your everyday smoky, sensual, ambery, woody, spicy fragrance, definitely give this one a try. It's worth at least getting your nose on and sniffing once. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed my review of The World According to Arthur. And if you guys had the opportunity to try this fragrance, I'd love to know what you guys think, positive or negative. Let me know in the comment section below. And as always, guys, I hope you're all happy and healthy. Have a great day, month, year, whatever. And I will see you next time.